Hey there, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and today I want to talk about what to do when you get stumped on what to post next on Facebook. This is a really, really common problem, and it's one that leads to a lot of big mistakes. So I want to talk you through some of my hot tips. Specifically, I've come up with 5 key steps that I take when I get stumped on what to post next. Now, this is not uncommon. It happens to all of us. But there's a few things that we need to remember when we get stuck. First of all, it is that we have not put the work into planning ahead. So I want to stop on number 1 straight away here and talk to you about the importance of making sure that we do not get into this situation again. Now, it does happen. I get it. We're all humans. Life gets busy. Life gets crazy. So I'm going to give you some other steps here in just a moment to help you anyway. But I want to just focus on how we can pre-plan and prepare so that we don't end up in this spot. Now, a little disclaimer as well. This is going to be a nice quick episode for you guys to be able to plunge into this one, get some notes knocked out, and you can get on with planning some content right now. And I wanted to allow some time for you after this episode to just have a little bit of a quick brainstorm and think about how you can make sure that this doesn't happen to you. First thing is planning ahead. Now, this is so important. There's a couple of different steps to planning ahead because planning ahead comes down to 2 parts. You've got your strategic part and you've got your creative part. Now, we've got 2 sides to our brain. We've got our left and our right. One of them is strategic, logical, and the other part is creative, and it's all about the fun and the color and the fluff and all of those things. That's how I look at it because I live in my strategic, logical brain most of the time. Now, we've always got one of those sides which is a little bit more dominant than the other, but we need both of those sides for various different things in our life. And when it comes to your social media content, you're going to need both your left and your right side of your brain. So how do you know which one you're operating in, and how do you know how to switch the other one on? Well, I'm going to let you know that there are definitely some tricks that you can do, and you can Google left and right side of the brain and check them all out and suss out how can I work out which side am I operating in. I love doing those quizzes and those challenges and working that stuff out. But the bottom line is at the end of the day, you need to be able to just really quickly get yourself into the right zone for the right part of the brain. So the first thing is when you are sitting at your desk or when you're sitting in your workplace, usually, not always, it depends what you do for a living, but usually you'll be sitting in your logical part of your brain, your strategical part of your brain. For me, in order to get my creative brain going, my creative juices flowing, I often need to change up my environment a little bit to do that. And you might be the opposite way when it comes to getting your logical brain switched on. So that's why it's really good for you to figure out which part of your brain you operate in and then how you're going to make that switch that works for you. For me, what I need to do if I want to get my creative brain going, so if I'm writing an email and I want it to be fun and I want it to be engaging, or if I'm creating some fun posts on Facebook and I already know what strategy I'm following, but I want them to look good, then I will turn some music on, or I might get up from my workspace, take my laptop and go sit in a different place. Maybe I'll even take pen and paper out and I'll go sit out in the garden or outside or in the car. Just changing my environment up can be enough to switch my brain out. So that's one little thing that is important just to note. Just have that sitting in the back of your mind for now. There's 2 parts to planning ahead. The first part to planning ahead is planning out your content. So this is your logical, strategic part. This is the bit where you're going to think to yourself about what do you want to achieve with your social media and how are you going to go about achieving that, and mapping out what you're going to post over the next 7 to 14 days. I would always suggest that you plan 7 to 14 days ahead, so 1 to 2 weeks ahead, because once you've got that scheduled and planned in, if life happens, it doesn't matter, but you know you've got good quality, well thought through content going up so that you can get on with other important things in your business. Now, this will stop you falling into that trap of, oh no, I'm stuck, what do I post next? Because you've already thought ahead. So what I would suggest you do, and this is what works for me and my team do the same thing is we each sit down for 2 to 3 hours once a week and plan out the week of whatever it is that we're responsible for. So whichever pages or whatever emails or whatever it is that we manage, we plan our content out ahead by 1 to 2 weeks. And we do that each week. So we're always at least a week ahead with everything. Now, if we've got holidays coming up or Christmas or something where we know we're going to be away, we make sure that we cover that period. I can tell you right now, I've fallen into the trap many, many times where I've thought, that's okay. While I'm on holidays, I'll just create a few posts while I'm off, doing my thing. Guarantee you, when you get yourself to that point and you're finally relaxed and resting, the last thing you want to be doing is finding time to get back to work and get some posts up. And I can almost guarantee you, if you're anything like me, if you're forced into doing it, you're not going to do your best work. So it really is best to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. So plan ahead, set that time aside, and allow yourself to have time off if that's what you're planning on doing. So if you're going to go away, get yourself planned ahead all through that holiday. And then if you feel inspired while you're away, fantastic. Slot something in. Move something out that you've scheduled in and put something cool in that you create while you're away, but don't force yourself to have to. That's just a little note from me to you, because this is definitely something that I have struggled with over the years. And I tend to be my own worst enemy when it comes to giving myself tasks and jobs when I really should be switching off. So I don't want you to fall into that same trap as well. So there's scheduling ahead when it comes to putting your posts out there and being strategic about what, when, and where. All right, so you plan out, work out what you're going to get up and get it scheduled. The second part is actually one that I do maybe every 3 to 6 months, preferably every 3 months if you can, and that is doing a content brainstorm. Now, this one requires the creative brain, and this is where I recommend that you take yourself into a different zone. Maybe, we've got a beanbag in the office here, so I might flop on the beanbag with a notepad and a bit of music going, or you can go outside for a little walk and just use your notes to dictate on your phone. But what I suggest you do is to do a brainstorm of a minimum of 15, preferably more, different posting strategies. Now categories. These are categories of post types that you can use to help you achieve your strategy or objective on social media. So this might be a frequently asked question. This might be a live with a hot tip. This might be a behind the scenes, my favorite product this week. This might be a recipe. It might be a lead magnet. It might be an engagement post asking a question. So there are loads of different categories you can come up with that underneath you can then do a brainstorm of a whole lot of actual post ideas that fit under that category. The reason it's good to do this in advance is because you will end up with 50 to 100 different posts that you could create over the next 6 months. And what this will do is give you loads to test and play with that you have created in your creative mind, so that you don't have to rely on being in the right place at the right time mentally when you get stuck. You've already done all of the hard thinking. So when you get to that point where maybe you do get stuck, or you're creating your post for the next 7 to 14 days, you've got this great big list to pull from that you've already done while you've been in a great creative mindset. Now, not all of those ideas are going to work. So this is where I'm going to get to point number 2, what to do when you get stuck. And that is this: check your insights. Go back and have a little bit of a look at what's worked for you in the past. Have a look at which posts have performed better than others. Have a look at what your audience is already telling you about the content you're putting out there on social media. When you use this information, when you have a bit of a look and you pay attention to what people are already interacting with, it's going to help you come up with more great content that works. Now, you might notice that when you asked a question that was, would you rather, you got loads more engagement. So how could you change that up? What are another 5 posts that you could create, that you could come up with that are going to be along similar lines? Maybe the post for you that worked really well was one you did during our 14-day challenge. It might have been the gratitude post. Now, the gratitude post is often one of the most popular posts that we do. The great thing about that one is it can be changed up in so many ways. For example, practicing gratitude is great for you and it's great for them. And there are so many ways you could do this. So these are just a couple of examples how going back and having a bit of a look can be a really good reminder, because we tend to post and forget, post and forget, post and move on. And I want you to go back, pay attention, look at what's already working, because it's often your secret sauce and we often forget about it. I do it too. We all do it. We're so focused on the right now and the future that we forget about the past. But when it comes to your social media, your past is showing you some really important information. So don't overlook it. Now, you might be thinking right now, well, Sam, I haven't had any posts that have performed well, so that's not going to help me. Well, all right, we'll jump into number 3. And this is one that I love to do. I have a lot of fun doing this one, and that is to scroll. Now, how can that be good for paying attention, for time, for being productive? Well, first of all, time yourself. Set a little timer for, say, 5 minutes. And what I recommend that you do is scroll. Just scroll through your Facebook, scroll through your Instagram, and pay attention. Screenshot every time a post grabs your attention. Every time you want to pause or you want to click see more, every time the image makes you stop, every time you see a word that makes you go, oh, what's that one about? Screenshot it. Now, at the end of 5 minutes, go back and have a look at those screenshots and write down 1, 2, or 3 things about each of those posts that grabbed your attention. What was it about those posts that drew you in? This is a really great exercise to do from time to time, but I love this exercise so much, I tend to do it habitually just whenever I'm scrolling, because what this will do is it will teach you a few things about how to grab your audience's attention, and it will give you some inspiration, some thoughts, and some ideas. Then what you can do is jot down maybe a couple of post ideas that you've picked up from doing that simple scroll. Just remember, never copy, always make something your own. So if you see a quote, for example, or a meme or something a little bit fun that someone has created or shared, go into Canva and create your own version of something so that it's yours, it's original, and you're not taking an image that doesn't belong to you. So please don't be tempted to go sharing something that doesn't belong to you. So that's number 3. Now, number 4 is an easy go-to here, and this is to ask a question. So if you're a little bit unsure, you don't know what to do next, one of the great things about engagement posts is that they serve a couple of purposes. They're a really great way to get an easy, quick piece of content out there that asks for people to interact, so they build engagement and therefore reach on your page. But they'll also tell you a lot more about what you want to know about your audience. So, for example, Greg and I wanted to know what are some more really great podcast episodes that we could do in the coming months. Now, while Greg and I are sitting there brainstorming, at the end of the day, we're not including the most important person in this conversation, and that's you. So we put a post out there and we asked you guys, what would be one training that you couldn't pass up on social media right now? And we asked another question was, if you could hear or see any public speaker or any speaker or inspirational speaker out there in the world right now, who would you love to hear from? Now, that question seems like a fluffy question, but we were actually thinking to ourselves, do you know, there's nothing stopping us asking some really famous people to come onto our podcast. What's the worst they can do? They could say no. Oh, well, move on to the next one. But it was a really great question for us to ask to get to know you better and what content you love. But what else does it tell us? It tells us what sort of quotes you might like to see, what sort of inspiration you might like to have. What sort of tone could we take on social media? Who else do you love to follow and do you love to pay attention to? So asking a question isn't as simple as just asking a question. It's helping you answer your own question, which is, what do I post next? So bide the time by throwing a question out there. Now, a couple of little tips for you is you could ask a question that is, what would you do if? What would you rather? Which would you? What's your opinion on? Or what's your favorite? So there's just a couple of examples, but there are so many different ways that you could throw an engagement question out there right now that's going to help you answer your very own question, which is, what do I post next? Don't ask that question, by the way. Make it a little bit more specific. But if you want to know, for example, what sort of stuff do they like to read? Ask them, what's their favorite book that they're reading right now? And then when they throw some books out there, go and pick one of those books up. Let it inspire you. Let it give you some content, some ideas, some information you could throw out there on social media. Next one I'm going to go to, so we talked about scrolling. I want to give you, what am I up to here? I'm just checking my notes. We've talked about planning ahead. We've talked about asking a question. We've talked about going back over your past content. We've talked about scrolling. I've got my last one here, which is this. Once you figure out a particular strategy that you're going to go with, so you're going to do a question, or you're going to put a frequently asked question out there, or you're going to share one of your favorite products and 3 reasons why you love it, or you're going to do a gratitude post. My last tip here is batch create, okay? Batch create. So don't just throw one out there to get you dealt with right now. Create 5. 3, preferably 5, maybe 10. Create at least 5 of the same post category. So go into Canva or go into your Creator Studio or your Business Suite, whichever you prefer to use, and batch create 5 that fit within that category and schedule one, say, for the next 5 weeks, so that you've got a little bit of content out there and you've covered your backside. So if you're going to do a gratitude post, create 5 different ones, change it up, use 5 different images, but keep yourself in that same mindset when you're batch creating, so you're not jumping all over the place, but come up with 5 different versions of something similar. And don't forget to test, see what's working and what's not. And if you do that one this week and it totally flatlines, go in and edit the one you scheduled next week. Just make sure that you're changing it up. But I like to batch create. So I'll often do an inspirational quote every now and again inside of our group. I don't just create one, I create 10 and I save them all in a file on my computer. So if I ever get to that point where I'm going, oh, what do I post next? I've got a file of unused potential posts I can get out there. Now, there's a flip side to this, a little hot tip I'm going to throw out there, and that's this. There's a few different ways to do this, but you have got so many awesome images. I have no doubt, this is me mind reading right now, I reckon you've got a whole lot of images on your phone that you've taken over time that you thought might be useful for Facebook at some point, but then you've never got around to actually using them. Am I right? Reckon I might be, because I can tell you this is something I do a lot, and I have had to come up with a bit of a plan to make sure that I'm not wasting awesome content. So this is what I do. Again, different ways to do this, but I've got myself a little Dropbox account, and I've got a file called Sam Phone Photos file, and my Dropbox is connected with my phone. It's also connected with my computer. Now, if you're a Mac user, problem solved, because your laptop is going to connect with your phone. So there's a few things to keep in mind. You've got to think about, how do you use your images? Where do you go to get your images when you create posts? So if you do your posting straight from your phone, you need to make sure that you create a separate folder on your phone, maybe in your gallery, that's called Facebook Photos. And you just copy across or drag across all the potential Facebook photos in a big batch, maybe once a week or so. Throw them all in there, and you don't need to worry about using them now. You just know you have a whole load of images to pick from when you're ready. I put mine in Dropbox so that everyone who's involved in our social media content can access that entire file at any point if they need to. In the past, I will upload to Canva. So in Canva, you can have an entire photo album in there that you can pull on whenever you want to. So you can literally upload a ton of images all at once. You don't have to only upload what you're using today. That way they'll always be there ready to go. Same thing if you're using something like Later, you can do that as well. The other thing you can do is you can upload your images into drafts into Facebook with no caption, so that they're there ready to go when you want to create a post. Loads of different ways to do this process, guys, but don't just take your photo and sit on it. I do recommend get in, throw them into a spot that you know you'll be able to easily access and use them when you go to creating your content. It's going to save you a lot of time, make your life a lot easier, and it'll probably inspire you. Sometimes I get inspired by the image first, because I think I know exactly what I could do with that. That will be heaps of fun. Or sometimes you've got the idea, but you're really stuck for what image to put with it. So sometimes it's good to have a whole file of photos you can go through, so that you're not held back by this whole I have to take the right picture problem. So make sure that you're not putting yourself in that position. Now I'm going to finish up on my ultimate hot tip when you get stuck for what to post next. So if you ever find yourself sitting there, you're going, I don't know what to do. Maybe none of the things I've just suggested are working for you right now, and you're really stumped and you're really stuck and you don't know what to do next, and you want to put something out there that's going to work for you. Here's my final hot tip, and this is, I use this anytime I get stuck. It works hands down every time because it's the most powerful piece of content you could ever do. Have you guessed what it is yet? Go live. Remember that people are not buying your product, they're not buying your company, they're buying you. And the best piece of content you could ever put out there is you. So if you get a little bit stuck, show up live. Doesn't matter if people aren't there live. It's going to be a great piece of content that will stay on your feed. People can go back and watch the recording later if they want to, but show up. Now, you might give yourself just a couple of little guidelines on what you could do if you're going to go live. So I would suggest jot a few ideas down, maybe pop them in your wallet or have them in notes on your phone. So if you do get stuck, you can really quickly reference this list and go, cool, I'm going to do a live talking about that right now. That's what I'm going to do. So for me, it might be a how-to. It might be a hot tip, or it might be a story. Those are three really great go-tos that could work for pretty much anyone. A hot tip, a how-to, or a little story. Story could be an experience you've had in the business. It could be a conversation you had yesterday. It could be an experience you had with a product. It could be why you joined the business. It could just be a fun anecdote of something that happened to you recently. Story doesn't have to be long and drawn out. It can be quick, short, sharp, and simple. You've got thousands of them right there in the back of your mind that you've probably not even thought to share. So just consider, what are some of the fun things that happened to you? What are some of the experiences you've had? What are some of the fails you've had in the business or with the product? It helps you be more real to share those things as well. So go live. That's my final little piece of advice there. When in doubt, just go live. If you're stuck, go live. If you don't know what to do next, go live. Trust yourself, guys. You've got so much incredible knowledge in your heads. And what do your audience want to see? What do your customers want from you? They want you. So the best thing you can do is show up. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope you got loads of notes. Just take maybe 10 minutes now with a piece of paper as we finish up this podcast episode and jot down, plan ahead, throw some ideas on paper. Maybe get yourself 10, 15 or 20 posts right now written down on a bit of paper that you can use as backup post ideas. Maybe if you've got the time, you could go in and batch create 5 or 10 posts and save them to your computer or on your phone so they're ready to go for next time you get a little bit stuck. But do me a favor and don't put yourself in the position where you're going to get stuck. Plan ahead, be organized, and that is going to be your best secret weapon towards content that converts, that grows your business, and ultimately gets you engagement, leads, sales, and grows your team. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. Go get them. I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and we'll see you in here again next week. Bye for now.